get started a little bit. We're going to go ahead and get recorded. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this beautiful day, for joining the Portland Elder Care Council. Like I said, we are going to record this. So if you do want a link to the recording after this, you want to share it with somebody, or you want to have it to reference, you can certainly message us in the chat box. Let us know. We do post it on our YouTube channel, so you are welcome to view it there. We can also make the slides available for you. So just let us know in the chat box. Our council member, Kelsey, is going to be monitoring the chat box today. So if you have any questions or you want to address a concern, put it in the chat box and we'll make sure that your questions are answered. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to get our little event going today. So, oops, here we go. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay. Here we are. So today's event is Daunted by Downsizing. Start here. We're going to have our council member, Whitney Zeigler. She's a rightsizing coach. Most of you know her. She's a wonderful resource here in the community. She's going to be presenting today, but we're going to tell you a little bit about the Portland Elder Care Council first. We are an alliance of volunteers here locally that are really dedicated to helping our neighbors and seniors and their families deal with planning issues for later in life. We really want to help elders, their caregivers, their families with the education and the resources to have solutions to their problems. So this is a free service, and we are here to provide education. So here are our council members. We've got myself. I'm the senior placement specialist and the interim director of the group. Jamie Levin is our licensed clinical professional counselor. Obviously, Whitney, who's our special speaker, will be talking about rightsizing. Our money guru is Mariah Hurlbert. Melissa is our occupational therapist and also healthcare advocate. And Suzanne Rowe, guardian fiduciary specialist. Kelsey Weingart is our realtor, and she's also the senior real estate specialist. She has a strong background in senior care as well. Nora King is our Medicare specialist, and we are adding a elder law attorney to the council soon. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully that answers all of your questions about our group to get started. Like I said, if you have any questions, put them in the chat box. We can answer them as we go through the event. But without further ado, let's get started. Whitney, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you so much, Bess, for that intro. If you could keep an eye on the chat box and any raised hands for me, that would be great. It's hard to see my notes and do all that at the same time. So thank you, everybody, for being here. Bess, is our roadmap up? Okay.
Yes, it is. Sorry, I'll stay unmuted.
No, that's okay. So this is where we're headed today. We're going to tackle all of the big questions: the who, what, when, where, why, and the how of downsizing. So you might be daunted by it. A lot of folks get overwhelmed and they don't know where to start. So if you're feeling that way, you're in the right place today. And our goal is to get you unstuck and give you some actionable steps to move forward. So let's go on to our next one. What do you think of when you hear the word downsizing? I'm curious.
Getting rid of stuff, getting rid of garbage.
And Mariah echoed you in the chat there. Yeah, so getting rid of stuff. What else?
Moving to a smaller place.
Moving to a smaller place. Smaller home. I can't see everything.
Jody said struggles. Bill says memories.
Retraction, loss. Jamie writes in the chat. So there's definitely a focus more on the negative, right? It's not associated with with positivity, is it? So yeah, Jody wrote struggles in all caps. So with what I do, I like to focus on the positive. I like to flip that to right sizing. So that's the word that I always use. Bess, if you could go on to our next slide, just like to tell you a little bit about why and what is right sizing, because a lot of folks haven't heard this term before. So it was coined by an author named Ciji Ware, and she's the author of Rightsizing Your Life, Simplifying Your Surroundings While Keeping What Matters Most. And she defines right sizing as a process, not an event. And she also says it's a conscious, practical, and psychological evolution in the way one lives one's life. The transition will, if executed properly, liberate you from many real life burdens and free you in ways you cannot now imagine. So it's pretty powerful. Sorry, Bess, will you go back? Pretty powerful when you think about it in those terms. Like, does that even feel differently to you when you hear the term right sizes versus downsizing? I'm trying to see the chat and everything all at one time. Bess, if there are any comments in the chat, could you read them out loud, please?
They said yes for that one. And then Heather said minimizing living with only what you need and what pulls at heartstrings.
Yeah, that's really liberating, to live with only what you need and to not carry that excess burden, that excess weight, literally and figuratively, on your shoulders. So research also shows that when we're trying to make changes in our lives, if we can be looking at it through a positive lens and being motivated by positive factors, like an I get to rather than a I have to do this, I'm being forced to do this. If we focus on the positive, it's going to create longer lasting change, and we'll be able to sustain our momentum longer. So that's why I try to focus on right sizing with my clients. It's also an opportunity to try to find the gratitude for this opportunity that we have to right size. Even if it's not a situation that we sought out, like maybe you're in the middle of a health crisis or a loved one is having a health crisis, but is there anything that you can be grateful for? Is there something positive that you can latch on to for that motivation to get you through that transition? Think about, what can you still do? You still have the power to make your own choices, which is huge. And we can right size at any age and any stage in life. All right, let's talk about the rope bridge next. So this one, for a lot of us, when we're just starting out and we're beginning a journey into a new phase in life, or some kind of transitions happening in our life, it can be really scary because we can't even imagine what's on the other side. And we get overwhelmed and we don't even want to take that first step. So think of it as like a rope bridge, and we're on this side of the bridge. It's kind of foggy and misty. We can't even see the other side. It's hard to step out there when we don't know where we're going, right? So especially if we're not here in this transition by choice, like maybe our life circumstances are forcing us to be here, like I said, due to a health crisis or issues involving a loved one. Maybe we're scared, or sorry, maybe we're excited too. It could be the opposite. You can still be excited and scared all at the same time. You might wonder, do I have enough courage to even embark on this journey? It's really easy to get stuck and feel overwhelmed. It's very common. So again, my goal with this presentation today is to help you get unstuck and to give you actionable steps to move forward. So let's go on to the next one, Bess. So this is where we want to be at the end of our presentation today. You can go off into the sunshine and enjoy your ball game in Beerville. All right, let's go to the next one. This is one of my favorite quotes. It's by Sark. You might be familiar with it. And it's a question. What will you do with your one wild and precious life? What will you do with your one wild and precious life? So I'm just going to let that sit with you for a sec. So I think this last year has taught all of us and reminded all of us that life can be really short. We've only got one shot at this. Unless you believe in reincarnation, then maybe we have multiple shots. What kind of imprint, legacy, or impact do you want to leave on this planet and on those whom you love? What will be your legacy? What do you want to be remembered for? So with that, we'll go on to our next slide. Now we're getting into our questions, and we're starting with the biggies, the who. Once we get the two biggest ones figured out, the rest falls into place. So the who are you? Who are you becoming? This is a question that comes out of coaching, and it's something that we're continually asking ourselves and our clients, because we're always in a process of evolving, right? We're always growing as individual beings into who we are currently, who we're becoming. So again, no matter how you found yourself here today, this is an opportunity for you to redefine yourself, to reset, and to restart. I get excited by that. I hope that you do too. And once we figure out the who in our list of questions, we figure out our needs, our values, and making decisions becomes a lot easier. We can gain clarity on what is going to support us in who we're becoming and what we want the next chapter of our lives to look like. Okay, I want to give you a couple tools for the who. So one is called your big rocks, and this comes from Stephen Covey. Some of you might be familiar with it. He wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, but he also wrote a book called First Things First. And he talks about a professor being in front of a classroom with this glass jar, and the jar is empty. And then he takes this load of stones out and fills the jar with these big rocks. And he asks the class, is this jar full? And they say, oh yeah, it's full to the tip top. And then he takes out this jar of smaller rocks and puts them in the jar and kind of shakes it around, and they fall in the nooks and crannies. And then he asks, is it full? Well, yeah, of course it's full. Now it's really full. And then the professor takes out a bag of sand and shakes it into the jar, and it fits in between the rocks and the stones and the pebbles. And then the professor says, okay, class, is it full? Well, now they're skeptical. They're not sure. And then the professor takes some water out and pours it into the jar. And miraculously, all of this fits because the big rocks went into the jar first. So if the professor reversed that, if the professor filled the jar with the water first, and then the sand, and then the pebbles, and then the rocks, you would have a huge mess, right? Everything would overflow. It wouldn't fit into our jar of life. So I have a really simple worksheet that we'll be sending out after the presentation, and it's a blank one. So this one that you're seeing here, these are my big rocks. This is what is most important to me. And then I also have a second exercise. It's called needs and values. And both of these just take 10 to 15 minutes. They're pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But if you're not sure, what are my needs? What are my values? What's most important to me? Or maybe you're at a point where you're wanting to reevaluate these things. These are 2 exercises that can assist. And again, we'll be sending them out after the presentation. So as far as needs, those I define as something that you can't live without. It's like oxygen for you. So think about what those things are for you. What are your top 3 to 5? And then values. What makes life worth living for you? So I'm going to let those percolate. We'll leave you with those. And we're going to go on to our next slide. I'm going to kind of be flying through things pretty quickly today, but we'll have time for questions at the end for sure. So our next big question, this is the second biggie, is the why. Why are you wanting to right size? You know, and Simon Sinek, I don't know if you know him, he's a very successful entrepreneur, but he has this phrase called know your why. And it's for entrepreneurs to know why you are starting your business. Why do you do what you do? Why are you putting in 14-hour days? Why are you getting up at 5 a.m. to run your business? You know, what are you passionate about? So if we can know what drives us, what motivates us, if we can know what our why is, that is going to assist us with our right sizing transition and with simplifying and figuring out what's most important to us and with making those decisions. So also knowing what motivates you can be handy. For example, some people are really excited to move to a smaller space because they don't have to do yard work anymore. They might not have to cook anymore. Maybe it's a way to connect with others. Maybe you have been living alone for the last year plus, and you're tired of being lonely. You're tired of being isolated. You're vaccinated and you're ready to reconnect with the world. Maybe you want to be safer. Maybe living alone is not safe for you anymore. Perhaps you need to move to housing that is more accessible. Maybe you don't want to clean anymore and you're excited to have housekeeping. Maybe you want to be freed up so you can travel more. So think about your why. Let's talk about the when. So what's your timeline for right sizing? Is it 2 weeks? Is your house closing and you need to be out yippee skippy? Or do you have the luxury of 5 years to plan a big transition? Think about your timelines. It's going to look really differently for everybody. And once you know your timeline, you can reverse engineer things. So if I have 5 years, I can formulate a plan and work backwards from there and chunk it out, divide it up. 2 weeks, it's a little tougher, but it's still doable, I promise you. If your timeline is hazy, you're like, I don't know. It could be this, could be that. I could do it in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Try to give yourself an artificial timeline and tell all of those close to you what you're up to so that they can provide some outside accountability and they'll be asking you about it and checking in with you. They can provide a little bit of extra incentive from the outside. So from the when, let's talk about making a plan and different ways that you can do that. Has anybody heard of a Kanban board? Sorry, I can't see hands.
No, I don't think anybody has.
Okay, this is a Japanese term and there's a visual here. So you see this board with the different sticky notes and you just have 3 categories. You have to do, in the process of doing, and then you have done. So let's say you have a year and you're going to be right sizing and moving to a smaller place and you want to break it down into different tasks. For example, you could put them each on a sticky note and in those 3 categories. So it's great for people who are visual, and about 60% of us are visual learners. So you can also, there are electronic Kanban boards, there's free apps that you can use if you prefer a digital version. There's all different sorts of colors and fun things you can do. This is just one way. Maybe you're a list maker and you like to have your to-do lists. But with the Kanban board, like for example, I could put a task on there, call Vietnam veterans to see if they accept treadmills. Might be a task that I put on there and I'm putting it in the to-do. And then maybe I move it along the board as I work on it. What's also great is that if I put these tasks on my board, I can ask my friends and family for help. Like, here's a 10-minute task that you could help me do because I'm feeling overwhelmed with this process. Like, can you call Vietnam veterans for me and ask them if they take treadmills? And your friend might say, yeah, sure, consider it done. So it's also a way to delegate. So you could have different categories for things that you're doing, maybe things your spouse is doing, and things that your friends and family are doing. And it's a way to visually track everything. There's also a lot of different productivity apps that, we could talk all day about different strategies and things. So does anybody else have ways that they like to plan that you want to share?
I was gonna say, I have my paper planner. The PEC council members have all seen it. I think you guys have laughed at my big paper planner before.
I haven't seen it before, but I think that's great. A lot of us are paper people, and there's nothing
I
wrong.
haven't seen it either, and I'm a paper planner person too.
I use a Rocketbook, which is like a reusable or erasable, and you can download it all to your whichever drive portion you want. So it gets a little crazy, but you can at least erase it and reuse it.
Neat. And I use a combination of digital with my team with Asana. And then I also have a bullet journal. I'm a visual person and a paper person as well. Any other ways that you like to plan?
I think Bill has his hand up.
Yeah, a friend came up with this options list of things that what I should do, need to do, want to do, and will I do. And sometimes it doesn't quite get done that same day, but over a couple of days. So, but it helps keep me on track. Prioritize.
Thanks, that's a great idea. And that reminds me of the Eisenhower decision-making matrix. I don't know if people have seen that, where you're focusing your energy on the things that are not urgent but are important. Like there's 4 different quadrants. We could talk about that another time, because I could talk about productivity all day long. So you don't want to get me started.
And of course, one of the areas, especially I use it with caregiving because I went through it with my mom, is if you have urgent things, you're in crisis, you really have to go into triage. This is what I need to do now. This is next. Everything else I have to wait.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hopefully we don't have to go through those very often.
Hopefully not.
If there are, you reminded me, Bill, of something I do. I use an electronic calendar now, but when I have a lot of projects to do, I will jot them down on a list and I number them. A is the most important, B lesser important, and C the least important. And I tackle the A's first, because that too many people, especially in sales, will do what is easy, which is filing or organizing their desk. And these are things that are not going to advance your business. So even if you don't have enough time to do the A completely, just tackle a little bit of one of them and you've made forward progress.
Thank you, Nora. That's great advice. I think that's actually the Franklin Covey method, Stephen Covey of the Big Rocks, where you have the ABC priority tasks. So it's neat how it all connects, it all links up.
I like to cheat on that a little bit. I love what you said, Nora. I make a list, and at the end of the day, I feel pumped on how many things I was able to check off. So I put not just long-term, but short-term stuff in there. So I feel gratification of productivity.
That's great. When we get an adrenaline hit when you can cross something off your list.
Yes.
And it gives you that momentum, that positive incentive, that reward to keep going.
I think Bill could restate those things on his list as Frank created for him. Those were good.
Bill, do you want to restate?
Sure. It says an options list, what I should do, and then there's numbers, by the way, what I need to do, what I want to do, what I will do. You can put them wherever you want.
Very important distinctions. And unfortunately, I know we could get into this all day long, but we'll move on to the where right now, down our question list. So this is a big one. Where are you moving to if you're moving? Or are you going to right size in place? Do you want to move to a barge in France or a houseboat? What's your dream? Where do you want to live your one wild and precious life? It's a big question. If you're uncertain, do some soul searching, or maybe work with a placement specialist like Bess to help you find, if you're moving to a community, help you find the one that's the right fit for you, where you're going to thrive. There's a lot of different tools. There's mind mapping that you can use to help brainstorm. You can do a pros and cons list. You could create a vision board. The sky's the limit. And if you ever want to talk about tools for that, I'm happy to talk about that as well. And the where also leads to the what, as in, where is your stuff that is not going with you going to go? So let's talk about that next, the what. So what to do with your stuff? This is often a big question for folks, and this is often where people get stuck, because we know it's not just about the stuff, really, is it? Right? If it was just about the stuff, it would be easy to move through. It'd be easy to make decisions. We wouldn't get stuck, right? There's a lot of emotion involved and attached to those things. Because we're really talking about identity. We're not talking about stuff. It's like, what does that stuff represent? That's what we're really talking about. So oftentimes I have older adults contact me and they say, my son or daughter wants to get a dumpster and just throw all my stuff in. And they're horrified and terrified. And the adult kids are frustrated. You know, everyone's at loggerheads. Nobody wants to give way, and nobody can move forward in that case. And it really strains family relationships. So I just really want to encourage the children of older adults to not do something like that. That can be really harmful and traumatizing for folks, because people feel like you're throwing their identity away. And same with folks who maybe identify as being on the spectrum with hoarding disorder, or who have hoarding tendencies. Again, coming in and getting a dumpster and taking someone's control away and throwing away the things that represent who they are and their identity can be really damaging. It's really important to honor the memories that are attached to those things. We can help our loved ones move through this process by listening to the stories attached to those things and the memories that they evoke. We can take pictures of those items to help them remember what that symbolizes, because oftentimes we hold on to the physical item because of the memory that it sparks within us, or we see it, it evokes that memory, it makes us feel good. But for a lot of us, I mean, if we held on to everything that evoked a memory for us, we wouldn't be able to move through our homes. And the average American home has over 300,000 items in it. That's a lot of stuff. And when we're right sizing, let's say we're moving to a smaller space, we simply can't take it all with us. So we have to figure out who we are, what's important to us, and what's going to support us in the next phase. What do we want to take with us? What are our big rocks? And there are some clever things that we can do to, like, for example, to honor things. Maybe we can make a memory box or a shadow box. Maybe you take your favorite t-shirts and make them into a quilt, and then you make a beautiful hanging and put it on your wall. I worked with a client who had advanced stage dementia, and she had these 6 mink fur coats. And she used to, in the 60s, like, go to downtown Portland. She would dress up to the nines and wear gloves and a hat, and she was just decked out every time. Those coats were so important to her. And what we ended up doing was getting really creative. We had them turned into pillows so that she could have them near her on her bed. And it was also very tactile for her. So you can get really creative in honoring the things that mean a lot to people. So let's talk about the how. Let's get into the nitty gritty. You know, what do we do with all this stuff? I'm on the Enlisting Allies slide on my end, Bess. Are you on that one too? Thank you. So right sizing can be a big process. It's like running a marathon. So, you know, who do you want to have run that marathon with you? Who do you want on your support team? Who do you want at, you know, mile 10 standing there with the towel in the water and the pep talk? Let's enlist your friends, your family, your allies. Who's on your team? Who can you put on that team? You want to make sure that it's somebody who is non-judgmental, respectful, and compassionate. Maybe find an accountability partner. Maybe there's somebody who's in the same stage of life that you are, and you can kind of keep each other accountable and check in with each other at least once a week. You can also hire a professional if you feel stuck, you feel overwhelmed, or you want to make faster progress. So professionals have a ton of resources. They have a lot of connections. They can coach you and guide you through this process. By all means, choose people who lift you up, who fill you up, who encourage you, who make you feel good. This is about you. It's not about them. It's about you. You make all the final decisions. You're driving the bus the whole time. That's important. What can your allies help you with? Like I mentioned, they can help you look up donation criteria for your favorite charities. They can cart items off to those charities for you. They can help you make a list if you want it for your taxes. They can ask you questions to help you make decisions. Well, what does this mug mean to you? Where did you get it? What memories are associated with it? What might be a good home for it if you don't want to keep it? Or is this a big rock? Is this something that you need to take with you? They can remind you of your vision when you get lost in the weeds. They can pull you back up to that 50,000 foot elevation, because we kind of need to stay up high and flying forward. They can also help you vet service providers, consignment shops, help you find the right home for your things that are not going to go with you to the next stage. And here are some practical tools. So right now, Bess, I'm looking at Jean-Luc Picard, Patrick Stewart. You want to have your colored dot stickers, a Sharpie, sticky notes, blue painter's tape, old boxes, and trash bags. So that's what we want in our toolkit. And then let's get tactical. Let's talk about our tactical tips. What you're going to start doing is grouping like items together. And you're going to have boxes or dedicated spaces for what you want to keep, what you want to donate. Maybe you need shredding, recycling, trash, items you want to sell, and then items you want to give away or relocate. Something that can also help too, instead of going room by room, is to go on a treasure hunt. I like to do this with my clients, where once we've identified who they are becoming, what's important to them, what are their needs, what are their values, what's going to support them moving forward, then we go on a treasure hunt all over their house to find their most treasured items that they can't live without, that absolutely have to go. So we're kind of cherry picking. We're not having to slog through and get weighed down going through every single item. Right? We focus on what matters most. And then once those items are separated, then we can go through and figure out what to do with the rest. That's actually the easier part. The hardest part is making the decisions. We want to break our project down into small chunks, using whatever planning strategy method that you want to use, whatever works best for you. And again, focusing on what to keep rather than what to let go of. There's a halfway house that you can use for items that you're not sure you're ready to let go of yet. So what this is you put them in a box and you label it carefully with what's in there. You put it in your garage or in your closet for a certain period of time, like 30 days, 60 days, could be up to 6 months. If you haven't gone back into that box looking for an item at the end of that time, and you can put a reminder on your calendar, because sometimes we'll put it in the closet and we're not going to remember that it's there, right? So put a reminder on your calendar, and after the time is up, if you haven't used anything, don't open the box again. Just take it directly and donate it, because you already know what's in it. You've got a list on the outside. It's time in the halfway house is done. So that's kind of the, I guess, a way to, if you're not quite sure, if you're on the fence about something. There's also the 20-20 rule. This is by the minimalists. So this rule is if you're having a hard time making a decision, because maybe you want to keep an item just in case. Well, we could have a household full of items that are just in case items, right? So if you can replace something in under 20 minutes for under $20, consider letting it go. That's the 20-20 rule. You can make your own rule. Maybe it's 50 minutes and $50 or 40-40, whatever works for you. Make it fun. Turn on some music, invite over some friends for some socially distanced right sizing and sorting. Maybe you treat yourself to a beer or a glass of wine or your favorite TV show after you do some sorting. Set a timer, do 30 minutes, celebrate afterwards, take a break, and then hit it again. Do whatever you can to make it fun for yourself and reward yourself. Something to think about is letting it go so you can grow. When you say no to keeping something, and this could be something, a commitment on your calendar, it can be a physical item, this could be many things, it could be a relationship. When you say no to something, it means you're saying yes to something else. What can you make room for, literally and figuratively, by letting go? So think about that. Let's talk about some common roadblocks. One of them is time. Sometimes we don't have time. We might have a crisis and we need to move right away. I worked with a couple, they needed to move from their house directly into skilled nursing. They weren't able to go to independent living, weren't able to go to assisted living, but they needed to go to skilled nursing right away. So they went from a 3,000 square foot house to a room the size of a hospital room, essentially. And they really had to right size a lot in a small amount of time. So that can be really hard. Partners might not always be on the same page. We might have, usually when I'm working with couples, one person is like, yes, I'm so excited, let's do it. And the other person is like, no, I'm not ready. So trying to find that balance and that compromise. If your partner is absolutely refusing to move forward and you're ready, focus on your stuff. What can you do? What's within your realm, within your control to make decisions about? Start there. Model that behavior and see where this momentum takes you. And then again, consider maybe bringing in a professional for support. Again, roadblocks, emotional attachment, it's not about the stuff, really. We might have physical challenges or health challenges that we're dealing with. Maybe we don't have a lot of energy. Maybe we can't physically lift things. Again, enlisting help might be the key. Or partnering with somebody where you can make the decisions and they can be your muscle. Like you could be the brains, they can be the brawn. Some folks might need some additional assistance. They might have a compulsive acquiring or hoarding disorder or have a tendency towards it. There might be, and this happens a lot when I work with folks, a mismatch between what we think our items are worth and what they're actually worth. So maybe we paid a lot for them 30, 40, even 20 years ago, but today they might not have a lot of value monetarily, but we paid a lot and we want to get a lot for them, or we want someone else to value them. So that can be tricky, but you can definitely consult professionals to see, okay, what exactly is this worth? And is it worth keeping this, holding on to it, insuring it, heating it, cooling it, taking care of it, schlepping it around? Is that worth more than our goal over here of right sizing, than our end goal, our freedom? What do we value more? So those are some roadblocks. Let's talk about some resources now. I often get asked, well, where can I donate things? So I'm just going to share, there's so many places out there. I'm just going to share a few of my favorites with you today. So one of them is the Cedar Mill Community Library. And I hope all of you are local. If you're not, I apologize. You might be in New York for all I know. But these are the resources that I know. So one's the second edition resale store at the library. All of the proceeds benefit the library. There's Community Warehouse. It's a small nonprofit based out of Tualatin, and they assist families who are fleeing domestic violence, families that have lost their homes to floods or fires or disasters, and they are top notch. There's Habitat for Humanity. They take all sorts of things, even live houseplants. They will recycle paint. You can dig up plants out of your yard and donate them. There's just so many things. Dishes, household goods. One of my ultimate favorites is the Rose Havens Women's and Children's Day Shelter. They work with anyone who identifies as female and with children. And they serve over 200 clients a day. And each client gets to come in and pick out 2 outfits. Most of their clients are working. So they come into the shelter, they get a hot meal, they're able to shower, get ready for work, have some new clothes that they can feel proud of and go to work in. And they have a safe place to be during the day. So we try to donate to them whenever we can. There's also the school district. Check out your local school district, because a lot of them have a clothing closet for youth who are experiencing homelessness or houselessness, or who are precariously housed. Like, for example, in the Beaverton School District, we have the highest number of students experiencing homelessness in the entire state. There's over, I think, 2,500. And it might be even higher given the pandemic. So there's a lot of different wonderful local resources you can donate to. We'll go on to the next one. What about discarding, recycling? There's this really cool company called James Recycling, and it was started by a young man who is on the autism spectrum, and he recycles things that you can't recycle curbside. So on, for example, April 24th, there's a special neighborhood event coming up where you can bring all your different plastics and other things that you can't do curbside. So it's really neat that he actually has a waiting list to get service, and he's expanding to different neighborhoods. He's hiring other people who have disabilities, and it's a really, really cool company. I love to support him whenever we can. There's also Metro. We're so lucky that we can recycle chemicals. You can recycle old holiday lights, hazardous waste, tires, all kinds of things. So check out metro.gov. You can recycle things for free at Goodwill if you've got any electronics that are no longer working. There's also Free Geek that will take your computers and they teach people how to rebuild them. So they're teaching job skills and life skills. And when the volunteers put in a certain number of hours, they get to earn their own computer that they can take home. There's also Agilix that's located in Tigard across the freeway from Washington Square, where they have these big dumpsters out in their parking lot. It's available 24/7. You can take all your styrofoam there and your number 6 plastics or anything that has a PS on it, and they melt it down and make it into rocket fuel. It's really awesome. So just a couple more slides. Hang in here with me. A lot of people,
On that last one, you should have seen all of our faces. We all had the same look on when you said rocket fuel. We all went, interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it's, they're really pioneering this new area, and also just, keeping things out of the landfill. They're really passionate about what they do. I had them come talk at our NAPO meeting, our National Association of Productivity and Organizing Professionals. So if you have any, community events, or maybe we'd even want to have them, come talk at one of our events, they're really fantastic. And then our next slide, a lot of people want to sell things, either through consignment, online, or through an estate sale. So here are just a few resources. Oftentimes, I think I'm going to give you a caveat. People don't realize how much time it takes. So you have to photograph items, you need to measure them, you need to figure out what is going to go where. And oftentimes, again, we overvalue what we have versus what the true market value is. And there might not be demand, for example, in the current market, because maybe it's just flooded. For example, with china, crystal, things that used to be valuable, antiques, but actually are not super valuable anymore because different generations want different things. There's actually this article in the New York Times where boomers were dropping things on their millennial children's front porches and literally running away because their kids don't want their stuff. So please don't do the doorbell ditch where you ring and run away. Don't do that to your kids, please. Some of the resources for consignment are the Assistance League of Greater Portland. It's located on 117th and Canyon Road in Beaverton, and they do wonderful things. They provide clothing for children who are in foster care. It's called the School Bell Project. They also provide clothing to survivors of sexual assault who go to the hospital for a forensic exam. You have to surrender your clothing because it becomes part of evidence and you have nothing to wear home. And so they provide brand new clothing, comfortable, soft sweatsuits and things for survivors to wear home from the hospital. They do 7 or 8 different community projects. They're fantastic. They have a thrift shop, they have a consignment shop, and then, yeah, you should just go check it out. It's a really neat place. OfferUp, a lot of us have heard about that. eBay, of course, Facebook Marketplace. Consignment Northwest is also located in Beaverton. They do jewelry, they do modern furniture, and they do artwork. And I've consigned things there myself. They're really great to work with, easy to work with. There's the Brooklyn Mall in Southeast Portland off of Powell Boulevard, and they sell antiques and all different kinds of home goods. So those are just a few local places that I can recommend. I'm going to give you some reading resources on the next slide. There's this really great book called Buried in Treasures. It is actually on our exam reading list for becoming a certified professional organizer. And I have read this book with my entire team, and it is phenomenal. It's called Buried in Treasures, Help for Compulsive Acquiring, Saving, and Hoarding. Rightsizing Your Life, which we talked about earlier. Don't Toss My Memories on the Trash. This is a really good one. If you are an adult child and you're assisting your parent through the rightsizing process, it's only about 100 pages. It's a quick, easy read, but it just has really concrete, helpful tips, like step-by-step how to do things. And I'm also going to be sending you out a 30-page guide for like right-sizing room by room. So look for that to come out soon, along with the 2 other worksheets that I talked about. There is another fun book. I suggest you get the audio book because the woman who reads it has this delightful British accent, and it sounds like just your friendly grandmother, and you're having this lovely conversation over tea. And it's a short book, and she shares anecdotes about her life, but also practical tips. It's called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning: How to Free Yourself and Your Family from a Lifetime of Clutter. And Margareta Magnusson, the author, she doesn't tell you her age. She refuses to. She just says, I'm between 80 and 100. And I think you'll like it if you check it out. So my very last slide is, do you have any questions for me? And thanks for being here on this beautiful sunny day.
Great job, Whitney.
What is the blue tape for in your toolbox?
Oh, sorry. So the blue tape, with our team, we often use it for if a cupboard or something is empty, so we don't keep opening the same door or drawer. So we mark it. And it's also to hold the sticky notes onto things, because they can be pretty sticky, but over time they'll fall off. And it's also safe to use on most furniture, unless it's like super fragile or hand painted furniture.
Just check in to see if there's any other questions in the chat box.
Yeah, I'm looking at resources that people shared. That's really awesome.
Yeah, people shared some great information.
Yeah.
Well,
I actually have a question. I'm wondering how, because I feel like family members in this process can be just as challenging in the right sizing approach. Do you brief them before and separately from the actual client, so to speak, as to like how to help with the emotional piece of this and making it go more seamlessly?
Yes. So oftentimes it's the adult child who reaches out to us first. And so we'll have a conversation from their perspective. And then I'll meet with the parents one-on-one, or the parent, to get their perspective. Because sometimes too, the parents aren't ready to move forward at all. And it's kind of that leading a horse to water situation where we just need to wait until people are ready. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's a health crisis that precipitates that. So I strongly encourage everybody to start right sizing, because we're never too young or too old to start, and to do it while you are in control and while you can make decisions. Like, don't have that power taken away from you by waiting until it's too late. So yeah, it can be really tricky, Jamie. And sometimes we get to a point where we just have to pause or maybe it's better for the adult child not to be there at all while we're working with their parents, because we just need to be able to preserve those relationships. And the parent needs to have a safe person and a safe space where they can, talk to somebody and kind of process through emotions, process through memories.
That makes sense.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, definitely.
I have a, well, it's something I can share. My mom passed away in 2010, and then my father passed away. We're just hitting our 4th year. And it was the typical scenario that we all are used to, particularly in this industry. It's you have to be reactive because of a health situation. And it was left up to the adult kids who were in the state of Oregon to clear out a 2,500 square foot home that had never been decluttered, and moving it into 3 big storage places, plus my brother's double car garage. It became a big resentment with 2 of my siblings.
Yeah.
To where the anger and all these things were coming about. And that was just within the first 2 years. But I discovered when, so I've been right-sizing, and I'm going to use that term now. And I found someone who will they have a virtual store, and he honors my parents' furniture, and it actually was my great-grandparents' furniture. I had 2 family members get very angry with me. I'm the one that's been storing it. No one wanted it. And then it's like everything resurfaced, and it totally caught me off guard. Drama. So, I mean, we never know what's buried within people. It's not just the stuff that's buried. It's the emotions that are buried. And my gosh, it's when you least expect it sometimes.
Right.
Just wanted to share.
No, thank you for sharing that, Jody. And that's true. I mean, it's absolutely not really about the stuff, is it?
Yeah.
I'm going through something similar. My sister has fallen, broken her leg, broke her shoulder. She's now, we tell her, temporarily in an assisted living, but she's got a 3,000 square foot house and a 2-bedroom apartment on the beach, a lot of hoarding. And people have approached her on, what would you like us to do with this? And all she can do is cry. So how do you make it apparent to people not to burden your family with your things? She has said to me, well, because she's in Los Angeles, well, you're going to have to come down here. And I'm thinking, oh, no, this is not my stuff. I'm not dealing with your stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where that Jody was talking about resentment can come in, because it can take hundreds of hours to go through a 3,000 square foot home, let alone the 2-bedroom apartment that you were talking about at the beach or something. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a big commitment. And 2, if your sister is crying when she's thinking about having to go through her things, I think that's a big indicator that some professional assistance would be great.
So it's kind of what I think I'm hearing you saying is for us to remain the family members, if we can bring that outsider in that doesn't know our buttons, doesn't have the emotional baggage, it will help us remain the siblings or the partners or what have you. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Thank you for saying it so eloquently. Yes. Thank you, Jody.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure.
And Jody, that makes me think as caregivers to, adults and stuff, that's kind of what assisted living and, elderly caretakers and, some of those professionals also say to us that, oh, let's preserve that relationship. So I hadn't thought of it that way with professional organizers with stuff, but that's, I think, yeah, really speaks. My question is, you talk about the goal and the timeline. What, like, if people kind of have all the time in the world, but hey, we need to right size a little faster, want to have it done. Like it's a 3,000 square foot home or 2,500. Like, what do you say is a good time budget? I guess with you and your team, or without, or does that make sense?
Yeah, it depends on the person and on the situation. With one client right now, we're working with her once a month for 4 hours. And so we're doing kind of one room a month. And in between, if we don't finish that room, she wants to take on homework and finish it herself. So, that's something that we can do little by little, because there's a lot of emotion to process, and it just making all of those decisions is really fatiguing as well. So some of our clients are comfortable with that. Some it's every 2 weeks. Some people are moving in 2 weeks and we need to just hit it hard and get it done. But if you have all the time in the world, something that motivates me, I don't know if it'll motivate other people, but I think, okay, if I died tomorrow, what would I regret leaving behind or not having completed, not having finished? Like, would I want to leave this burden on my loved ones? That helps me.
Yeah.
Whitney, what areas do you cover?
Cool, thank you.
Sorry, there's multiple questions there. I'll address Mariah's first. So we have gone as far north as Ridgefield, as far south as Salem, and as far west as Astoria. So we'll travel reasonably far to assist folks. And if someone lives outside of the area, I'm happy to connect you with another professional organizer or senior move manager. Bill, did you have a question too?
I have just a quick question, Whitney. Of the suggested readings that you had up, which one of those would you recommend most to the individual who is having trouble with acquiring things, or I should say letting go of the things that have been acquired?
Definitely Buried in Treasures. So we have found that if our clients are reading that book, and there are free support groups, one on the east side, one on the west side, through the Multnomah County Hoarding Task Force, and for example, through the Washington County, I think it's Aging and Veterans Disabilities. So there are different 16-week groups, and it's based on like an AA model, a peer-led model. So they read the book together for 16 weeks, and then they meet once a week afterwards to continue to support each other and continue to reinforce the new skills they've learned and the tools they've learned, and to encourage each other and keep that momentum going. So I have, known people very close to me who have gone through, they call it BIT, and you become a member of the Golden Shovel Club when you complete that 16-week training. And it's been really powerful to see people get that knowledge and those tools and then work side by side with us as well. And we've had clients who have maintained their space long-term, which has been super rewarding to see.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Whitney. I want to be respectful of everybody's time, but I think people have a lot of questions. So we definitely, if you have more questions, please reach out to us here at the Portland Elder Care Council, or, if you know Whitney personally, or we can connect you with her so that you can ask more questions. But Whitney, you did a beautiful job on that presentation. And I think you gave us all a lot of food for thought, and, recognizing that this is a lifetime goal that we can have of right-sizing our lives. So really wonderfully done. Thank you. For people that have joined our events before, I did add, Jamie added it as well. There is a link to a survey. If you want to click on that, just let us know what other information you are looking forward to learning about, how we can improve these events. And if you have specific things that you would like one of us to address with you, go do the Survey Monkey. Like Whitney said, she has some workbook and worksheets for everybody. So if you want copies of those, please put your email in the chat and we can make sure that we get you those, or fill it out in the Survey Monkey, say that you want them, and we'll make sure that we email you a copy of those, or a copy of the slides, or a link to the recording of this. Just let us know what you want in the survey, how you want this information to be dispensed. A few announcements. We are going to be taking May off from an event. We have some Portland Elder Care Council housekeeping to do. So we're going to take May off for events. June, we're going to start up with a 2-part event that we're really excited about. That's going to be taught by Suzanne Rowe, our fiduciary specialist, and also Jennifer Trundy in Elder Law, and kind of all of the documentation, advanced directives, durable power of attorneys, what you need and when. And so that's going to be a 2-part series that we're really excited about. And so check back at our website for when those will be posted and that you can RSVP for those. But in the meantime, feel free to reach out to any of us on the council if you have any questions. Girls, am I forgetting anything? No. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. We had a few people drop off already, but we really appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. This was very special. Also, if anybody is a member of OSRA and wants to use this as a education credit, let me know and I'll get you your attendance certificate. I thought so, Jody. And Heather, okay. Oh no, okay. And I think we're good. So we'll definitely see, hopefully all of you back here in June for our 2-part event. All right, I can let you guys all go, but let us know if you have any questions, put it in the chat, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining, Jody.
Thank you. This was great.
Thank you all.
Bye, Minda.
Should we